The Council's verdict, the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Federation, stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian, its crystalline ceiling displaying the swirling colors of distant nebulae. Representatives from 47 different species occupied their designated platforms, each one carefully positioned according to protocols established over millennia. At the center of this magnificent chamber, 2 humans stood before the judgment of an entire galaxy. Commander Sarah Chen maintained perfect military posture, despite the weight of countless alien eyes upon her. Her dark hair was pulled back in regulation style, and her blue Federation uniform bore the insignia of humanity's short-lived membership in this ancient alliance. Beside her, diplomatic advisor Marcus Webb clutched a data pad containing testimonies that would likely never be heard. Both humans understood that this was not truly a trial, but a sentencing. High Magistrate Zethkari rose from his crystalline throne, light refracting through his translucent body in patterns that conveyed authority to those who could read the complex visual language of his species. When he spoke, his voice resonated through the chamber's acoustic amplifiers, reaching every corner with perfect clarity. We gather today to address the ongoing problem of human integration into galactic society, Zethkari announced, his words causing ripples of approval throughout the assembly. In the mere 18 months since humanity joined our Federation, they have consistently demonstrated behaviors that threaten the stability our civilization has maintained for over 10,000 years. Sarah Chen felt her jaw tighten, but she remained silent. She had anticipated this moment from the day humanity first made contact with alien civilizations. Their species was young, impulsive by galactic standards, and had a troubling tendency to act first and ask for permission later. General Thox of the Kethmaran Empire clicked his mandibles in agreement, his insectoid form towering above most other representatives. The humans have violated no fewer than 37 interspecies protocols, he buzzed through his translator. They consistently ignore established procedures, show disrespect for hierarchical authority, and demonstrate alarming levels of individual initiative. A wave of supporting clicks and harmonic tones echoed through the chamber. Sarah noticed that not all species participated in this chorus of condemnation, but those who remained silent seemed reluctant to voice any defense. Scholar Yimtel of the Oceanic Confederation raised one of her 6 tentacles, requesting permission to speak. Her aquatic form required a specialized environmental suit that maintained the proper water pressure and salinity levels for her survival. Honored Magistrate, she said, her voice carrying the melodic quality of her water-dwelling species. While the humans have indeed acted outside established protocols, we must consider the results of their actions. Zethkari's crystalline features shifted in what Sarah had learned to recognize as barely controlled irritation. Scholar Yimtel, are you suggesting that positive outcomes justify the violation of laws that have governed our society for millennia? I am suggesting, Yimtel replied carefully, that perhaps we should examine what the humans accomplished when they chose to act independently. Marcus Webb stepped forward slightly, recognizing an opportunity to present their case. Honored representatives, he began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber without amplification. 6 months ago, when the Vrex research station in the Kepler system experienced catastrophic system failures, our rescue mission violated 17 different protocols. We didn't wait for proper authorization from the appropriate committees. We didn't file the required environmental impact assessments. We didn't even request permission to enter Vrex territorial space. General Thox's mandibles clacked dismissively. Exactly the kind of reckless behavior that... We saved 437 lives, Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. Lives that would have been lost while the proper committees debated and filed the appropriate paperwork. 2D, uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. The Vrex incident had been a source of considerable embarrassment for the Federation. By the time their relief mission had been properly authorized and equipped, the human ships had already evacuated the entire research station and established temporary housing for the survivors. Sarah Chen seized the moment. 3 months ago, when the Zephyrian colony ships were trapped in that solar storm, we again violated protocols. We used experimental shielding technology that hadn't been approved by the Technology Assessment Board. We risked our own ships and crews without proper authorization, and saved 12,000 colonists from certain death," added Marcus. Zethkari's form pulsed with agitated colors. "The issue is not the results of your actions, but the dangerous precedent they set. If every species begins to ignore established procedures whenever they believe circumstances warrant it, our entire civilization will collapse into chaos." Sarah had heard this argument before, and she understood the fear behind it. The Galactic Federation had achieved unprecedented peace and stability by creating systems of rules, committees, and protocols that governed every aspect of interspecies interaction. It was a delicate balance maintained by absolute adherence to established procedures. "With respect, honored magistrate," Sarah said, "our actions have never threatened galactic stability. We've acted to preserve life and prevent suffering when circumstances required immediate action." "Circumstances," General Thox buzzed angrily, "that were judged by humans according to human standards. You cannot comprehend the complexity of decisions that affect multiple species across vast distances of space and time." The debate that followed revealed the fundamental divide between human and alien thinking. For most Federation species, stability came from predictability, careful planning, and the slow process of consensus building. For humans, stability came from adaptability, quick decision-making, and the willingness to take calculated risks. Representative after representative rose to speak against humanity's continued membership in the Federation. They spoke of humans' tendency toward individual heroism, their discomfort with rigid hierarchies, and their alarming habit of proposing new solutions to old problems. Each criticism was delivered with diplomatic courtesy, but the message was clear. Humans simply didn't fit into galactic civilization. As the formal accusations concluded, Zethkari assumed his position at the center of the chamber. "The evidence is clear," he announced. "Humanity, despite their good intentions, represents a destabilizing influence on our carefully maintained galactic order. However, we are not without mercy." Sarah felt her stomach tighten. She had expected expulsion from the Federation, perhaps even trade sanctions. But the tone in Zethkari's voice suggested something far worse. "The Federation Council has decided to offer humanity a choice," the magistrate continued. "You may accept immediate exile from all Federation worlds and territories, returning to your single star system to develop at your own pace. Or," he paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle, "you may accept voluntary relocation to Kepler 442c, where you can establish a colony and prove your ability to build a civilization that truly contributes to galactic society." The chamber fell absolutely silent. Every species present understood the implications of that offer. Kepler 442c was notorious throughout the galaxy as one of the most hostile planets ever discovered. Classified as a Class 15 Deathworld, it had claimed the lives of survey teams from 6 different species. The planet's extreme weather patterns, toxic atmosphere, and aggressive native life forms had earned it the designation of unsurvivable by every major xenobiological institute in Sator, the galaxy. Marcus Webb leaned close to Sarah and whispered, "They're offering us a choice between exile and death." But Sarah was thinking differently. She had spent years studying alien psychology and understanding how different species approached challenges. The Federation saw Kepler 442c as an impossible obstacle, but humans had a different relationship with impossible obstacles. "We accept," Sarah said clearly, her voice carrying across the stunned chamber. Zethkari's crystalline form flickered with surprise. "Commander Chen, I want to be certain you understand what you're accepting. Kepler 442c has defeated every attempt at colonization. Its surface temperature varies by over 60 degrees Celsius within hours. Its atmosphere contains corrosive compounds that destroy most known materials. Its native life forms have evolved specifically to eliminate competing organisms." "We understand perfectly," Sarah replied, "and we accept the challenge." General Thox leaned forward on his platform. "Human, this is not a challenge. This is certain death. We are offering you the opportunity to die with dignity rather than face immediate exile." Sarah smiled, an expression that confused most alien species but conveyed confidence and determination. General, with respect, you don't understand humans very well. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the vacuum of space. We've turned deserts into gardens, tamed rivers, and built cities in places where nothing should be able to live. She turned to address the entire assembly. Kepler 442c may be classified as a death world by your standards, but those standards were set by species that approach problems differently than we do. Give us 5 years. If we can't establish a thriving colony on your impossible planet, then humanity will accept whatever judgment you choose to impose. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien sounds. Some species clicked or buzzed in disbelief. Others produced harmonic tones that indicated confusion or concern. A few remained silent, perhaps recognizing something in the humans' confident acceptance that their colleagues had missed. Zethkari called for order, his crystalline form pulsing with authoritative colors. Commander Chen, the Federation will provide basic colonization equipment and transportation to Kepler 442c. Beyond that, you will receive no assistance from any member species. Are you certain this is your choice? Absolutely certain, Sarah replied. But we have one request. What request? We want the Federation to send observers. When we succeed, we want witnesses. The silence that followed was different from before. It wasn't the stunned quiet of shock, but the thoughtful pause of species beginning to wonder if they had underestimated these strange, impulsive mammals from the third planet of an unremarkable star system. 3 days later, the human transport ship Determination departed Federation space with 2,000 volunteers aboard. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, watching the stars shift as they entered hyperspace. Beside her, Marcus Webb reviewed the geological surveys of their destination. Sarah, he said quietly, what if we're wrong? What if Kepler 442c really is impossible? Sarah looked at the star charts displaying their route to humanity's new home. Marcus, in our entire history, we've never found a problem we couldn't solve if we were willing to work hard enough and think creatively enough. The Federation sees Kepler 442c as a place where nothing can survive. I see it as a place where no one has tried the human approach yet. As the Determination hurtled through space toward a world that had killed every previous attempt at colonization, its human crew began planning not just for survival, but for success. They carried with them the accumulated knowledge of human history, the tools of human engineering, and the stubborn human refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. Behind them, the Galactic Federation waited for news of humanity's inevitable failure. They had no way of knowing that they had just made the greatest mistake in their 10,000-year history. Deathworld Renaissance. 6 months after the human colony ships disappeared into the Outer Rim, Ambassador Kreeth of the Altarian Survey Corps approached Kepler 442c with the grim task of documenting humanity's failure. His sleek observation vessel, the Silent Witness, emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the star system, sensors immediately scanning for signs of human distress signals or evacuation beacons. What his instruments detected instead defied every prediction made by the Galactic Federation's finest xenobiologists. Sir, reported his navigation officer, a young Altarian named Velth. I'm detecting multiple artificial structures on the planet's surface. And sir, they appear to be expanding. Kreeth examined the sensor readings with growing confusion. The data showed not just human survival, but active construction on a massive scale. Thermal signatures indicated industrial operations, atmospheric processors, and what appeared to be agricultural facilities. Most impossibly of all, the readings suggested that the planet's hostile environment was actually becoming more stable in areas of human activity. Move us into high orbit, Kreeth ordered. Begin detailed surface scans, and prepare the communication array. If humans are still alive down there, the Federation will want to know immediately. As the Silent Witness assumed orbital position, its advanced sensors revealed the full scope of what humanity had accomplished. The northern continent, which previous surveys had identified as utterly barren wasteland scoured by acid storms, now showed clear signs of terraforming. Atmospheric. Processors worked steadily to neutralize the toxic compounds that had made the air unbreathable. Massive greenhouse complexes dotted the landscape, their transparent domes glowing with the artificial light of growing plants. But it was the southern continent that truly amazed Kreeth. There, humans had built what could only be described as a city. Not the carefully planned, symmetrical structures that characterized most galactic civilizations, but a sprawling organic community that seemed to grow naturally from the landscape itself. Buildings rose in irregular patterns that somehow managed to work with the violent weather patterns rather than against them. "Ambassador," Velth called out, his voice tight with disbelief. "I'm detecting life signs throughout the human settlements. Not just survival numbers, sir. Population growth." Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the observation dome of New Resilience, humanity's capital city on Kepler 442c, watching another group of newly arrived colonists disembark from the supply shuttle. She had arrived with the first wave 6 months ago as the colony's chief scientist, but her role had evolved into something that would have been unrecognizable to the Federation bureaucrats who had condemned them to this world. "Elena," called engineer Jake Morrison from across the dome. "The weather station is picking up another storm system moving in from the western mountains. Looks like a big one." Elena nodded and activated the citywide communication system. "All residents, this is Dr. Vasquez. We have a Class 7 storm approaching from the west. Estimated arrival in 4 hours. Please implement Storm Protocol Delta and prepare for extended high wind conditions." Throughout New Resilience, humans calmly began their storm preparations. What had once been a terrifying fight for survival had become routine. Children helped their parents secure outdoor equipment, while adults checked the storm drain systems that channeled the acid rain into processing facilities, where it was neutralized and converted to useful chemicals. The city itself had been designed around Kepler 442c's violent weather. Buildings stood on flexible foundations that could absorb seismic shocks. Rooftops were angled to direct acid rain into collection systems. Wind turbines throughout the city converted the planet's fierce storms into electrical power that supplemented their fusion reactors. Captain Liu Wei emerged from the underground transport system that connected all of New Resilience's major districts. As the colony's security chief, he had spent the morning inspecting the perimeter defense systems that protected the city from the planet's more aggressive native life forms. "Elena," he reported, "the automated sentries have had 3 contacts this week. The local predators seem to be learning to avoid our territory. They're adapting to our presence." "That's actually good news," Elena replied. "It means the ecosystem is stabilizing around human activity instead of rejecting it. This was perhaps humanity's greatest achievement on Kepler 442c. Rather than trying to eliminate the planet's hostile environment, they had learned to work with it. The acid storms provided raw materials for their chemical processors. The extreme temperature variations powered their thermal generators. Even the aggressive native life forms had been incorporated into their security systems, with humans training some of the more intelligent predators to patrol their borders in exchange for regular food supplies. The approach had required abandoning most traditional colonization methods. Instead of imposing human needs on an alien environment, they had adapted human technology to complement the planet's existing systems. It was an approach that no other Federation species had ever attempted, largely because it required a level of flexibility and improvisation that most galactic civilizations found deeply uncomfortable. In orbit above, Ambassador Kreeth watched the approaching storm with fascination. Previous surveys had classified such weather systems as colony-ending events. The winds alone should have been sufficient to destroy any surface structures, while the acid rain would corrode through the strongest known building materials within hours. Instead, he watched the human city transform. Buildings reconfigured themselves as walls slid into new positions and rooftops adjusted their angles. The storm, rather than threatening the colony, was being harvested. Massive collection arrays deployed to capture the rain, while wind turbines locked into storm mode to handle the extreme forces. "Sir," Velth reported, "I'm detecting an incoming transmission from the planet's surface." The main screen activated to show Commander Sarah Chen, though she looked significantly different from the formal Federation diplomat who had accepted exile 6 months earlier. Her hair was longer, her skin bronzed by the alien sun, and her clothes were practical work gear rather than military uniform. Behind her, through the windows of what appeared to be a comfortable office, the lights of New Resilience sparkled in the gathering darkness of the approaching storm. "Greetings, Ambassador Kreeth," Sarah said with a warm smile. "Welcome to Kepler 442c. I trust your journey was pleasant?" Kreeth found himself momentarily speechless. The human's casual confidence was completely at odds with what he had expected to find. "Commander Chen," he finally managed, "the Federation sent me to document the final phase of your colonization attempt." Sarah's smile widened. "Well, you're certainly welcome to document what we've accomplished, though I should warn you, we've been quite busy down here. I hope you brought a large data storage system." Through the observation ports of his ship, Kreeth could see the storm system beginning to reach the human city. Lightning flashed across the sky as winds that should have been devastating were channeled through the city's architecture to power its systems. "Commander, how are you surviving this storm?" "Surviving?" Sarah looked genuinely puzzled. "Ambassador, we're not surviving. This storm, we're using it. That storm system will provide enough power to run our city for 3 weeks. Plus we'll collect about 2 million liters of water once we neutralize the acid content." Before Kreeth could respond, his communications officer reported another incoming signal. This one originated from Federation space bearing the emergency codes of the High Council itself. High Magistrate Zethkari appeared on a secondary screen, his crystalline form pulsing with urgent colors. "Ambassador Kreeth, what is your status? Have you located the human survivors?" "Sir," Kreeth replied carefully, "the situation is more complex than anticipated." "Explain." Kreeth activated his ship's external cameras, providing the High Magistrate with real-time images of New Resilience. The city sprawled across the landscape like a living organism, its lights twinkling in the storm as automated systems worked to harvest the violent weather. Zethkari's crystalline form went completely still. "That is impossible." "Sir, the humans have not only survived on Kepler 442c, they have thrived. They've established a functioning city, achieved population growth, and appear to have integrated their technology with the planet's natural systems in ways that our scientists believed were impossible." On the planet's surface, Sarah Chen had been monitoring the Federation communications frequencies. She activated her own transmission to reach both the observation ship and the High Council directly. "Honored Magistrate," she said, nodding respectfully to Zethkari's image, "I hope you'll forgive my intrusion on your private communication. We've been monitoring Federation frequencies in case any of our people needed rescue. I'm pleased to report that no rescue has been necessary." Zethkari's form pulsed through several color combinations that Kreeth recognized as indicating severe confusion. "Commander Chen, our best estimates gave your colony less than a 5% chance of survival. How have you achieved this?" Sarah gestured toward the windows of her office, where the storm raged outside while the city's systems calmly harvested its power. "We approached the problem differently, sir. Instead of trying to impose our needs on this world, we learned to work with what it offered. Kepler 442c isn't a death world, it's just a world that requires a different approach." "But the storms," Zethkari protested, "the toxic atmosphere, the aggressive native life forms, are all resources," Sarah finished. "The storms provide power and water. The atmospheric chemistry, once properly processed, yields useful industrial compounds. And the native life forms are actually quite intelligent. Several species have proven capable of limited cooperation once they understood we weren't competing with them for resources." Throughout the Federation, news of humanity's success on Kepler 442c spread with the speed of quantum communication. Species that had dismissed humans as reckless primitives suddenly found themselves re-evaluating their assumptions. The idea that a Class 15 death world could be not just survivable, but prosperous challenged fundamental beliefs about habitability and colonization. Within days, the first formal requests arrived at Federation headquarters. The Zephyrian Commerce Guild wanted to establish a trading post on Kepler 442c to study human terraforming techniques. The Oceanic Confederation requested permission to send a scientific expedition to learn how humans had achieved atmospheric processing on such a scale. Even the Vrex, whose lives had been saved by human recklessness months earlier, applied for permission to establish a research facility in the human colony. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in her laboratory, reviewing the latest atmospheric data from their processing stations. The numbers were better than they had dared hope. The planet's air was not only becoming breathable for humans, but the reduced acidity was allowing native plant species to flourish in areas that had been barren for centuries. "Elena," Jake Morrison called from the doorway, "you need to see this. We've got incoming ships, lots of them." On the communication screen, Ambassador Kreeth appeared again, but this time he was accompanied by representatives from nearly a dozen Federation species. "Commander Chen," he said, "I've been authorized by the High Council to extend formal recognition to your colony and to offer full restoration of humanity's Federation membership." Sarah considered this carefully. "That's very generous, Ambassador, but I think we'll need to discuss terms." Terms. This came from General Thox, whose insectoid features displayed obvious confusion. "You are being offered everything you lost: full membership, trade rights, diplomatic recognition. All of which we seem to have achieved without Federation assistance," Sarah replied diplomatically. "However, we would be interested in establishing Kepler 442c as an independent partner world, working with the Federation rather than as a member of it." The silence that followed was profound. Never in Federation history had a species requested partnership rather than membership. Zethkari finally spoke. "What would such a partnership entail?" Sarah smiled. "Cultural and technological exchange, trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and most importantly, the right to continue developing our own approaches to challenges without interference from Federation bureaucracy." As negotiations continued over the following weeks, it became clear that humanity had achieved something unprecedented. They had not only survived what the galaxy considered unsurvivable, but had created a new model for interspecies cooperation. Species that had previously been unable to work together found common ground in studying human innovation. The Galactic Federation, which had existed for 10,000 years as a rigid hierarchy of rules and protocols, found itself adapting to accommodate a species that refused to fit into established patterns. It was a change that would ripple through the galaxy for generations to come. On Kepler 442c, in the city that had grown from humanity's refusal to accept the impossible, children played in parks filled with alien plants that had learned to coexist with human technology. The Deathworld had become a garden, and the species that had been cast out as too dangerous for galactic civilization had become the teachers of a new way of living among the stars.